Welcome back to Trust Your Eyes. Round 24 was a thriller. It came down to the final game of the season, but the top 8 is now set and the matchups are fantastic. But the only starting point can be out west. Fremantle needed a win to get in and lost. Port Adelaide had too much class and polish, winning by 20 points. So what did you make of the game and Fremantle's season? The biggest takeaway from the match was how fumbly Fremantle was compared to how clean and classy Port Adelaide was. Fremantle, they're not called the Fremantle Dockers anymore, they're just Fumbly Freo. That's their new nickname. They'd won me over this year. I was impressed with what Justin Longmuir had done and the players on the field, but that last quarter you could hear the groans and the moans every time a player got the ball and tried to handball and then fumbled or messed it up with a bad disposal. It was telling. I think the pressure got to him. I think that's fair to say. I think Justin Longmuir would accept that, and he kind of talked a bit about that in the post-game press conference, but they didn't deserve to play finals. They weren't good enough. Port Adelaide were really good in spots. Horne-Francis and Butters. Just that class was a bit better than Brayshaw and Sarong, who tried hard, and I think that's a good point. Fremantle did try hard. Maybe they tried a little too hard because they just, even for the whole game when they were relatively close, just felt like there was a gap in the overall quality. It's a bad way to end the year. I think they've made a lot of strides. They've lost their last 4. They didn't have 3 of their best players. Probably Tracy's become pretty clear in Fremantle's fans' minds that he is their MVP, their most valuable player, because forward of the ball they couldn't get a winner. It's a missed opportunity for Freo, no doubt. It's not the end of the world because it's still a very young team, one of the youngest in the competition. But they'll learn from this how to deal with the pressure, and they need a little more quality in that midfield and up forward. We go to that Carlton heartbreaker of sorts. Jack Higgins' miracle snap got St Kilda a 2-point win, but the biggest story is with the Blues. They have 2 weeks off before heading to the Gabba to face Brisbane. Right now, can you see them at least competing with the Lions? I think Brisbane fans would have been disappointed in Fremantle because Carlton, I think, are going to be far more challenging than what Fremantle would have been. There is some 2016 Bulldogs about this because it looks like they're going to get a whole bunch of players back, with the main 2 being Harry Mackay and Charlie Curnow. And when those 2 are in the forward line, you're always a threat as long as they can kick it to them pretty well. They're playing with house money. They really shouldn't be in finals. I think that's fair to say. They got a bit of luck, but you always need luck. So I think they'll play pretty free. But they've kind of developed this team-first approach in the past 2 weeks that served them relatively well. So if they continue that while playing with a bit of flair and freedom, it causes a problem for Brisbane. I think it's a real challenge because we know that Brisbane, their goal kicking is back to being bad again. It was good there for quite a while, but Danaher, Rayner, Hipwood, are these guys really trustable? I'm not sure, and the pressure on the Lions will be extreme. They're going to be probably the biggest favourites in 2 weeks' time, and it's going to be a fascinating game. I give Carlton probably a 30 or 40% chance of winning. Do I think it'll be a close game? I do. It's just whether Brisbane can stay composed and take their moments, and if they do, they will probably win, but they have been leaving the door wide open for opposition teams in the recent time. The first of the Sunday games saw the Western Bulldogs flourish late and hold off the Giants to finish 6th. The conditions were wild and windy. So what impressed you most with the win? And are there any concerns with the Giants? Well, I think the best part of this win is how well the Bulldogs played the conditions. They were kicking against the wind in the first quarter, which is always a danger sign. But in that first and third term when they weren't kicking with the wind, they kicked the ball to the far side of the ground and tried to lock it there. They did that really well. And then when they had the wind, they went through the middle, had a lot of speed, and went to the other side of the ground and kicked a lot of goals. So it was fantastic. They're now 9 wins and 4 losses at Ballarat, so it's slowly but surely becoming a real kind of home advantage. I don't think opposition teams like to travel there because, again, the conditions are not great. But I think the Bulldogs, they're getting a bit of a following down there. It's packed house, all Bulldog fans. And I think it's doing really a lot of positives for them when they play there. Not many concerns with the Giants. I had 3 laid outs. Brent Daniels is a superstar and Toby Bedford's their best tagger. So they'll get a lot of players back. They'll get Riccardi back for that qualifying final They're still in Sydney because they get to play the Swans. They're a big shot to win that game. So, impressed with the Bulldogs. Not too many concerns with the Giants. They had won 7 in a row. And I think both teams will go into their finals feeling pretty confident. Hawthorn and Geelong got big wins over North Melbourne and West Coast respectively. Both teams are in great form. So did you learn anything about them in their games? The pretty simple answer here is no, and that's because North Melbourne and West Coast were both terrible. Mainly North Melbourne. I think West Coast actually beat Geelong in the second half. They might have kicked a goal or more too. So that was at least a little bit of a positive for them, but North Melbourne were really atrocious. That was in wet weather as well. I know they had key players missing, but both teams, Hawthorn and Geelong, are in good form, and I guess a couple takeaways is because the opposition was so poor, you got to see the real strengths of each of them. So Hawthorn, their speed is off the charts and their skill, it's just fantastic at the moment. All their half forwards and half backs, their flankers are kicking the ball well and getting a lot of penetration and with their legs and with their feet kicking the ball. So I think that's their clear attribute going into the finals is the speed of Hawthorn and Geelong. Well, we see what Jeremy Cameron means to them, and if he is a down final series, then they're probably not going to win the premiership. He's that important. He kicked 9 goals, was the best player on the field. So I think it's a positive because he's in great touch, but also a bit of a concern that if he doesn't bob up, maybe they won't have enough scoring power. But I think Cameron will be fine in the finals, and we see what a weapon he is for Geelong and how much they need him. Collingwood ended their season on a high, defeating Melbourne by 46 points. It's been a difficult year for the club, so what are the big things that have faltered, and can you see them bouncing back as a threat next season? Well, clearly the number one thing on the field is the injuries. They've had just so many. De Goey, Mitchell, Myercheck, it's just Dan McStay at the start of the year. There's a lot of players I could name. It's a really deep list, and a lot of these injuries happened at the same time, which really killed them kind of in this back end of the year, really. Then off-field, the Graham Wright thing, that didn't help. There was rumours, there was feuds with Brendan Bolton, Justin Leppich, who wanted that kind of general manager of football role, and that always does play a part in the background. And then the desire and the want, was it as strong as last year? Absolutely not. That's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just that the bar in terms of wanting to win and competitiveness was so high that it's near impossible to just mentally and physically reach it again. I can see them making the 8 next year with a fully fit team. They have enough quality. Whether they can win the premiership, I don't know. It's just so early, but I can see them competing, within the top 8 to 10 teams in the comp. But I do worry about them the next year, 2 or 3 years down the line. They haven't got a lot of great young kids. They got no picks this year because of the Lachie Schultz trade. So that's my little concern, that maybe they really do have to go for one more tilt next year because there might be a bit of a drop-off after that. But it's been a disappointing year. They've been pretty unlucky, but maybe that balances out the fair bits of luck they got in 2022 and 2023. Before we get to a mini preview of the finals, Jesse Hogan won the 2024 Coleman Medal with 69 goals. It's his first Coleman, so out of 10, how impressed have you been with his overall year? Well, I have to go to a 10 out of 10 for a few reasons. I think out of the big forwards, and pretty much all forwards, he's been the most consistent every week and in different facets. He can take big contested marks on the lead, and the other important part of his game is his goal kicking, his accuracy. He's right around that 70% range, which is just so important. It just feels like Hogan does more than kick goals as well. He gets up the field, lots of link-up play, using his aerobic ability, which is really good. So he's been awesome. It's a great story. We saw it last year. He kicked 40-plus goals, and you think, this is a pretty legitimate focal point, but he's just taken it to another level at, 29 or 30. I think he can play like this for quite a few years because he missed a lot of football in the middle part of his career. So can Jesse Hogan stay in this type of form till he's 34 or 35? I absolutely can see it. He doesn't rely on his athleticism and his jumping. It's his work rate and his football smarts and strength, which he'll have for a long time. So it's been a crazy turnaround. Shows you why teams want to keep all these talented players, because when they get it right, they can perform like Jesse Hogan. So well done. Congratulations to him. It's a great total and he's been the best forward all year. To finish off, looking forward 2 weeks from now, out of the 4 finals matchups, which one is the most intriguing and why? Well, at the time of making this, I put a poll up on the channel and the overwhelming vote was the same as what I'm thinking right now. It's the Bulldogs and Hawthorn. The first is it's because it's an elimination final, so we obviously won't see the loser for the rest of 2024, but they're the 2 most informed teams. I think since round 12, Hawthorn are first and the Bulldogs are third if you were to do a ladder from that point of the season to now. Both are pretty exciting in different ways. We know Hawthorn have the speed, but they do it with their small forwards and their half-back flankers getting up and getting involved in scoring chains, where the Bulldogs, they're obviously a fair bit taller, and with Darcy, Jamara and Norton, it's a lot of firepower. So MCG Friday night, the only finals game in Melbourne, I think they'll probably get around 90,000, if not more. I think there'll be a lot of neutrals that go. And it has the makings really of an all-time special final. And it's a bit of a reverse of the 2016 semi-final. Obviously in that game the Bulldogs were kind of the young pups, and in this one we have the young Hawks. And I know the Bulldogs aren't quite as experienced as that Hawthorn side in 2016, but they definitely are a bit more experienced and a little bit older, so that adds a kind of special dynamic. So it'll be fascinating. It's the most interesting final. I can't wait for it. Thanks for listening to Trust Your Eyes for round 24. Good luck to all the teams in finals, and I'll be back soon.